Hello and welcome to Berry Aftercare, my friends, the podcast. I'm Dr. Connie Stapleton, and I can hardly stand my excitement tonight, for real, because we are going to pick up and talk about what we've been discussing the last couple of weeks. You heard me talking about lifestyle, then you heard a discussion between Laura Preston and myself about lifestyle. So we're going to continue with that tonight, do a brief review of what lifestyle means, talk about this lifestyle in relation to your weight loss journey, and even bigger than that, your overall health. So get your seatbelts on. Let's go, because this is critically important information for you, your family, your loved ones, the people you don't even like. It's really important information for everybody. And we're going to call this lifestyle health and where you could be headed. So, as I said, we're going to pick up from our last couple of episodes. We've been talking about lifestyle, and I want to talk about our overall health, physical, emotional health based on lifestyle. We talked about lifestyle, which the American Psychological Association says is our typical way of life, or the way in which we live life. That's characteristic of you or your group, and it's expressed by your behaviors, your attitudes, your interests, and other factors. Kind of broad, right? And as we've been talking about this, we've been making note of how early in your bariatric lifestyle, especially as a new post-op, having just had surgery, people are and absolutely need to be focused very extensively on those psychological, not the psychological, the physiological, the body aspects of lifestyle, right? So even though lifestyle consists of more than what you eat and how you move your body, in that first year or two, there's a lot of emphasis on this physiological aspect. You have to pay attention to how many grams of protein, how much water you're getting in. Are you taking your vitamins? Are you doing this all on the proper schedule? And then maybe after a year or so, or 2 years, the hope is that you can kind of relax into your new normal life. You've developed the routine, you're eating your protein first, you're getting all your water in, you're taking your vitamins, you're doing some exercise. We want to develop an overall healthy lifestyle. So, in other words, after those first couple of years, life starts to include a more robust life, right? It's not just about what you're eating, when you're drinking the water, are you getting enough grams, but it includes more involvement in healthy activities, healthy friend styles, hobbies. You may have gone through a lot of changes in the first couple of years in terms of those things. You may have new interests, you may have new friend groups, you may have all kinds of different activities that you are exploring. I literally watched on Facebook today a video of an 80-year-old patient of mine who did skydiving. She did tandem skydiving for her 80th birthday. She is a post-op. She is doing the things, right? So keep in mind, you've got a lot of life to live if you take care of your health. Obviously, other things can happen, but to the extent to which you can influence your health, let's do it. Because maybe when you're 80, you're going to want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. So you want the whole shebang, life, all of it, living it fully, maintaining the weight loss, of course, and getting out there and doing the things you want to do. So with the loss of weight, people often enjoy the remission of a lot of comorbid diseases. They may have been caused by the weight gain, or they might have gotten worse as you gain weight. And even when you lose weight, not all the diseases will go away. But this week, and maybe even the next one or two, I don't know, we're going to talk about the role of stress on the body and how making a healthy lifestyle, and especially the changes to create a healthy lifestyle, to include but to go beyond healthy eating and physical exercise, go a very long way in preventing and healing a number of diseases. So I want to make note here of the fact, and I say fact, that when people come to me with regain issues after weight loss surgery, the number one issue they tell me that led to regain is stress, life. They usually say life happened. And when I ask them to explain, they'll say things like, well, my parents got sick, or, my kid had to have a surgery, or my spouse lost a job, or I was laid off, or I got a promotion and I started traveling a lot, or whatever it is. Stress is related to regain. Stress is also related to all kinds of physiological illnesses. So we're going to put this all together, talking about the importance of reducing stress so you're able to maintain your weight loss and not respond to stress by emotional eating. We've talked in many episodes prior about skills for coping with stress in healthy ways. So please go back and find those episodes. But today we're going to talk about what happens in addition to regain, or instead of regain, to harm your health when we have too much stress. And I want to preface this by saying, way before I went to school to become a psychologist. So we're talking, I started school when I was like in my early 30s. So we're going to go back at least 5 years before that, because I was in sales. I had a natural interest in a field of study called psychoneuroimmunology. And I developed this interest because when I was in sales, I would ride around in my car and listen to sales training tapes. And they incorporated a lot of the information about stress and health and immune system functioning and disease in relation to stress. So I started learning about this field called psychoneuroimmunology, which is, in essence, the study of the effect of the mind on health and being able to be resistant to diseases. So it's, how does your body, how does your mind assist you in maintaining health, in fighting against disease? How does this aspect of lifestyle, your way of thinking, your attitude, your mindset, how does this affect your body and health? And to me, friends, this is freaking amazing. And when it comes to your health and maintaining weight loss, we've talked all kinds of ways and times about the impact of your mindset, your attitude, the way you look at things, the way you talk to yourself in your ability to maintain weight loss. The same is true when it comes to preventing and healing diseases in your body. And this field of psychoneuroimmunology is really not a new field at all. As I said, I was interested in it 35 years ago, but let me tell you, it dates back to 1975. So a long, long time ago, there was a psychologist named Robert Ader. He's the one who first coined the term psychoneuroimmunology, which is a long dang word to spell, let me tell you, to describe the study of the interrelationships among the nervous system, the endocrine system, which is a lot about the inflammation, and our immune system. So he was like, what does the mind have to do with the body systems and disease? And I promise you, from a theoretical perspective and from a personal perspective, and seeing this in a lot of people, I believe that a whole bunch of diseases are the result of the mind and the body together. So maybe a disease starts up in your body, but you can totally heal it with your mind. I absolutely believe that. Or with all kinds of non-Western medicines, acupuncture, healing touch, all kinds of things. But we're going to look at these. And that's not to the exclusion of Western medicine. I totally appreciate and value Western medicine and use it a lot. But I believe there is more. And I believe that we can incorporate a lot of these more naturalistic, holistic kinds of practices and kind of avoid the pill mill, right? Sometimes we tend to turn immediately to a pill. And I heard somebody say recently that, a pill is not a cure, it's a trade off. Because anytime we put medicine into our body, there's a trade-off. It affects some kind of system, right? Now, I've read a ton of great books over the years, and I'm going to list those in the show notes. A lot of you have probably heard of these because they've been bestsellers and in recent years by authors who medical doctors work with and who get other medical professionals and the general public interested in understanding this link between how we think, our stress levels, and our health. So you've probably heard of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. He has been in the news. Interestingly enough, just last week I was going through my emails and I subscribed to Time Magazine via email, and it said something about why is the whole world currently focused on stress? And they cite this whole long article about this Dr. van der Kolk, and he wrote a book called The Body Keeps the Score. The Body Keeps the Score. And I love this book. It's kind of technical and it's about pretty traumatic stress, like soldiers and, really intense abuse victims. But the point is the same. There are some other books like Dr. Gabor Mate. His book is called When the Body Says No. I'll talk a lot about him and his work. And he says the body finally says, no, I can't handle any more stress. And that's when our bodies develop these autoimmune responses and we form inflammatory disease. Really, really interesting. Some that I'm currently kind of picking at and reading through include Goddesses Never Age by Christiane Northrup. Well, apparently I'm late to the party with her books because I'd never heard of her till recently. And a lot of the women I know have been reading a lot of her books along the way. And apparently her daughter is also very involved in writing about our bodies, our thoughts, and our health. There's a book called The Joy of Movement by Kelly McGonigal, a really, really best-selling book recently called Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lemke. Another one called Movement for Self-Healing by Mir Schneider, and one called Hands of Light by Barbara Ann Brennan. And again, I'll provide the links to these books if they interest you at all in the show notes. But what's important is there's all these physicians, psychiatrists, uh, health healers in all these different areas, and they're basically saying the same things. How we think, how we handle stress is linked to our physical health. And you know that when it comes to regain. You've experienced that, so many of you, when you have experienced emotional eating. You eat in relation to stress. The stress causes harm to your body, and so do the excess calories. But in each of these books, you're going to find this. I hope you find this freaking fascinating because it is, and it will be so relatable because we've all known people with these diseases. So stick with me here. But in each of these books, the authors give amazing statistics about common illnesses, people you know, and maybe you: fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, cancer, ALS, not so common, but a lot of these are. The common illnesses and the relationship to internal emotional distress. So it's not just our weight that's affected by stress, it's the formation of many other diseases. So, what these authors are reporting, and this is through rigorous research, this isn't willy nilly like, gee golly, Wally, right? Did you ever watch, what was it? Leave It to Beaver? Gee, Wally, old show. Anyway, the little brother's always saying, gee, Wally. So I say it sometimes when I'm being a little facetious, but these doctors are saying, like, gee, Wally, did you know that all this research is pointing to the effects that stress has on our bodies? It's a huge factor in the diseases, more so, listen carefully, more so than having a genetic predisposition. What? Yep, you heard me right. Stress is often more of a factor in the development of a lot of diseases than if a person had the genetic predisposition. So listen up because you're going to learn some things here. And this is also the case when it comes to the disease of obesity. And you can keep your weight off more easily by understanding the information that follows. You're probably very familiar, as I've said, probably 6 times already, that emotional eating is often the result of stress. Emotional eating results in weight gain. Weight gain causes other diseases. So does stress. So, how do we know if it's your weight that caused these diseases or the stress that's causing these diseases? What I'm going to tell you is I think it's a combination of both. So, by learning to deal with stress and cope more effectively with stress without eating, not only are you going to prevent regain, you're also going to decrease the chances of a number of other diseases and maybe even heal yourself from them. Not kidding. All right, so I ended the episode a couple of weeks ago by quoting this female physician, very renowned doctor, best-selling author, Christiane Northrup. Here's what she said. Diseases don't just appear out of nowhere. They're the final result of a process that takes time to develop. So it's not one day you wake up and you've got, fibromyalgia. She said, these things take years and years and years. They are quite literally an imbalance in your system, in your body. That's the result of years and years of neglecting to engage in the cause of health. The causes of health. Do you hear the wording? What are the causes of health? We talk all the time about the causes of disease. Here's what she says the causes of health are pleasure, doing things you enjoy, jumping out of that airplane if that's what you want to do, line dancing if that's what you want to do, being on a game show if that's what you want to do, sitting on your butt and reading a book for 4 hours if that's what you want to do. So, pleasure, exalted emotions means I'm happy, I'm joyful, I'm experiencing really a lot of calm in this moment or pleasure in this moment. And righteous anger. What is righteous anger? It means allowing yourself to be mad when something that is maddening has happened to you. So if somebody comes up and hits you in the back of the head with a book, you should have righteous anger about that. I'm angry. You have no right to hit me in the back of the head with that. So if you have experienced neglect or abuse or trauma as a child, you deserve to have righteous anger about it. Here's what a lot of my bariatric patients tell me during evaluations. Yes, I was sexually abused, but that happened so many years ago, it doesn't really bother me. Baloney! That is stored in your body. The emotions related to that are stored in your body, and you have every reason to have righteous anger. Children should not be abused, beaten, sexually abused, tormented, called names. Righteous anger. I'm angry that that happened to me. But instead, people keep it inside and it churns and it churns and it churns and it burns and it turns into, after years and years and years, a disease that didn't just appear out of nowhere. So, you can prevent diseases and often reverse them. And she says the most common chronic degenerative diseases today, listen up, the most common chronic degenerative diseases that make our bodies fall apart: heart disease, arthritis, cancer, dementia, and diabetes. Didn't start with obesity, didn't start with carrying extra weight. Start with chronically high levels of the stress hormone cortisol. Let me repeat this because you may have heart disease. You may have arthritis. You may have cancer or dementia or diabetes or know somebody who does have one of those. This doctor and many others are saying that these diseases start with chronically high levels of the stress hormone cortisol. Now, weight doesn't do them any favors. Carrying extra weight makes them worse, right? But this cortisol, the stress hormone, cortisol, having high levels of cortisol, PS, combined with a diet high in sugar, that may be something you know something about, which causes uneven blood sugar levels, create insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, and oxidation, which are the root causes of all chronic degenerative diseases. So, my friends, what she's saying is stress is at the root of all of these diseases. Stress. So, if we don't learn how to manage our stress, we're going to be getting more and more and more diseases, even if you lose weight. Or if you don't learn to deal with stress in positive ways, you may have these diseases and regain your weight back. We can't be having this. So there's more to this physiology. There's more to lifestyle in terms of keeping your weight off and preventing other diseases than just diet and exercise. It's talking to yourself, it's your attitude, your mindset, how you deal with stress. So let's go on. So Dr. Gabor Mate, who wrote When the Body Says No, agrees. He says emotional stress is a major cause of physical illness, from cancer to autoimmune conditions and many other chronic diseases. So he's saying basically the same thing she does. He says the brain and body systems that process emotions are intimately connected with the hormonal apparatus, the nervous system, and in particular, the immune system. So, what this means is if we don't process our emotions, even if they're related to things that happened 10, 20, 30 years ago, or maybe yesterday, or maybe last night, if we don't process the emotions, meaning we acknowledge them, I was angry, I was sad, I was hurt, I was lonely. Lots of prior episodes that we've done on Bari Aftercare about those things. If we don't acknowledge them and say, this is how I feel, and we don't tell somebody, I feel sad because this happened. You may have seen me play the feelings game with my grandkids. I've posted episodes about that. It's teaching them to be aware of their emotions and to express them. That just means talking about them. Do you know how to do that? So many of the people I work with post-operatively after bariatric surgery are so struggling, and I get it because so did I, with identifying their emotions and allowing themselves to have permission to talk about them and work through them. You're going to find out even more how critically important that is. So, the brain and the body systems that process these emotions are so connected to our other systems in our body, and especially the immune system. And what happens if we knock out our immune system? We get diseases, right? And we just think we have a bad immune disease. Do we stop to think maybe my immune system is messed up because I haven't expressed my emotions related to things that are going on in my life now and maybe happened in the past? Who'd have thunk it? Well, thank God a lot of medical people are starting to understand that this is the case through research, through research. But what happens is we focus on the disease rather than looking at where did it come from? Where did it come from? What are the origins behind it? Because maybe we can heal the disease by processing through the unresolved stuff. So, Dr. Mate, Dr. What the heck is her name? Northrup, many, many others, Dr. Vanderkolk, talk about the fact that stress. Okay. And we're back. We may have to edit that a little bit, but even if we do, so what? We're going back to this really, really important information. So, chronic stress produces cortisol. Cortisol reduces the number of the natural killer cells in our body that are needed to fight viruses and infections. So, these doctors are talking about that even stress from unresolved traumas from childhood, being a caregiver to somebody in the present, which I know a lot of people who are doing that currently, having job stress, having stress in relationships, our hectic schedules. Who doesn't have stress, right? We have to work to calm down these cortisol levels in our body, get rid of it out of our body to prevent other diseases. So, in her book, Hands of Light, Barbara Ann Brennan, when she speaks about disease in the body, she says, many times the source of initiating cause of the disease process is associated with psychological or physical trauma or a combination of the two. So now we have another person who is in the healing professions who's saying the same thing. Disease, stress can be caused by psychological or physical trauma or a combination of the two. So we have so many authors saying the same thing. And when you read enough and you study enough, and most people are saying the same things, I'm going to go with what they're saying, right? I'm going to say, this is a saying in the 12-step community. If 10 people tell you you have a tail, turn around and take a look. Because if a lot of people from a lot of different sources are saying the same thing, there's probably some truth in it. So we have a lot of people, a lot of physicians, a lot of medical people saying the same things. Now, here's a review of some studies in a thing called Current Opinion in Psychology. They found that stress can cause the immune system to produce an inflammatory response, which can temporarily be beneficial for fighting germs. However, if inflammation caused by the stress is present and widespread, it contributes to chronic diseases, wherein the body's anti-inflammatory response is, this isn't the word, but it's basically, it's not going to work. So your body has this ability to fight germs and fight inflammation. But if you have inflammation caused by stress and the stress hormone cortisol that's persistent and widespread, the body can't keep up with, and you're going to end up having diseases. So most medical doctors do what they're taught in medical school, right? Thank God. They treat the diseases, and I'm so grateful for that. However, for a lot of these medical professionals and psychological professionals, myself included, that's only part of the picture, treating the disease. It's important to hear these words: accept the reality. This is a reality. There's a lot more going on in your body when it comes to disease, including the disease of obesity. And hear me when I say that. There's a lot more going on with the body to include the disease of obesity than genetics alone account for. You know from experience that genetics are one of the factors that have contributed to your obesity, right? Absolutely. I do not doubt that at all. And they can play a significant role. Stress can also play a significant role, as evidenced by the fact that most people tell me that stress is the number one cause of their regain. Okay, so stay with me. You've lost weight by having your surgery. What have you done about the stress in your life? If people regain because of stress, what are you doing about the stress? If people develop autoimmune diseases because of stress and other diseases, what are you doing with your stress? Are you working to decrease this? And if you are not, and this is part of this lifestyle we're talking about, if you're not, it's likely that stress is going to either lead to regain or to other diseases that are often thought to be primarily genetic. Now, I'm going to tell you something so interesting about genetic testing, and I'll give you the source for this. But as of August 2017, there were approximately 75,000 genetic tests available on the market. And the genetic testing market is projected to be valued at $25 billion by 2025. So, in other words, you can test to see if you have the genetic predisposition for all kinds of diseases. But here's the reality, and this is what's reported. The reality is that our genes give us relatively little information about our overall health. For example, don't miss this. Inherited genetic mutations play a major role in only 5 to 10% of all cancers. Only 5 to 10% of all cancers have a big determining factor by genetics. Only 10% of ALS cases are considered familial. And inheriting a gene for familial ALS does not guarantee that someone will develop the condition. Check this out. Less than 1% of all Alzheimer's cases are inherited or familial. So what's causing these things? You already know the answer because we've been talking about it all the way through this. So listen to what Dr. Christiane says in her book. Only 2% of all breast cancers, ladies, listen up. Only 2% of all breast cancers involve an inherited gene mutation, such as the BRCA1 or the BRCA2. All right? How about that? We know that gene expression is strongly influenced by beliefs, by what we think, and emotions, as well as by lifestyle choices. So she's saying genes are regulated. They're turned on and they're turned off as a result of our environment and lifestyle. And most of a cell's genes never get expressed. So only 2% of people who have breast cancer, whether or not they have the genetic BRCA1 or BRCA2, only 2% of people, or 2% of all breast cancers involve people who have this. So 98% of people who get breast cancer don't have the genetic link. So you can get tested for the genetic link, but it's not going to really have that much determination in whether or not you get breast cancer, because 98% of people who get breast cancer don't even have the gene. So how about that? All right. That's impressive. Genes are a blueprint, not a reality. So she is saying here that your lifestyle, how you deal with stress, what you put in your body, the people you hang around with, the mindset you have, the emotions that you display, the things you keep repressed, those are more influential in causing cancer than your genetics. Yikes. All right. Dr. Mate and Dr. Northrup explain that all humans have damaged and abnormal, even cancerous cells in their bodies. But the vast majority of these cells never become cancer because your immune system works to repair these, or, the cells die off before they replicate. So, according to Dr. Mate, this means that for any cancer to occur, any cancer, the cell damage is not enough. The cell damage alone is not enough to cause the expression of cancer in your body. There must also be some failure of the immune system that allows the damaged cells to continue replicating unchecked. And he cites a lot of research that shows that stress inhibits the immune process. So these doctors are saying, check your stress levels, friends, and learn to deal with it, because it's not your genetics that are going to give you cancer or Alzheimer's or ALS or a lot of the autoimmune disease. It's your lifestyle. It is your lifestyle and how you deal with stress. So, in that review of studies that I mentioned just a minute ago, that was written up in Current Opinion in Psychology, they note that several studies on psychosocial factors related to cancer have found the biggest risk factor for cancer is repressed emotions, specifically feelings of anger. Do you hear this? Cancer. The biggest risk factor for cancer is repressed emotions, specifically anger. How much anger are you holding on to? Oh, I don't want to tell anybody I'm angry. I don't want to talk about being angry. Talk about being angry. You're going to heal your body by doing so. And you're not likely to turn to food because you're holding it in there either. So, how many people who suffer with the disease of obesity have some repressed emotions? Specifically, say anger? A lot of the ones that I talk to. A lot of people who deal with the disease of obesity, the disease of addiction, the disease of all kinds of things have repressed emotions, specifically anger. So, Dr. Northrup emphasizes the importance of really listening to our bodies. And I mentioned before that Andy Stanley says, pay attention to the tension. If you have tension in your body, pay attention to it and learn to go inward, not just to the doctor. Yes, go to the doctor too, but go inward and figure out what our body is telling us. What is it telling us we need? Maybe you need to get rid of some repressed emotions. Maybe you need to make some changes in your willingness to stand up for yourself. Maybe you need to learn to express your opinion. Maybe you need to learn to set boundaries. Maybe you need to learn some healthy communication skills. Maybe you need to learn to say no to yourself. But paying attention to our physical bodies can help us get to know and love ourselves more and prevent potential illnesses. So Dr. Northrup quotes Thomas Lewis, who's a physician, and he was the former director of Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital, big famous hospital. He was the director. Here's what he said. I have come to believe that cancer is the physical metaphor for the extreme need to grow. Fascinating. All right. In prior episodes of Bari Aftercare, the podcast, we've talked about all kinds of ways to manage stress, right? And each week on the Bari Aftercare Facebook page, I post what I call the midweek meditation. Are you part of Bari Aftercare? And if so, are you listening along to the midweek meditation? If you're not a part of it, are you taking any quiet time for yourself? We're working to reduce stress to prevent weight regain. But what I'm learning and what I'm hope you're catching on is that reducing stress also reduces the level of cortisol in our bodies. So we're also reducing the risk of cancer and many other diseases, ALS, autoimmune illnesses, Alzheimer's diseases. So we're going to be talking about those in the next couple of episodes because the people I work with, so many have autoimmune diseases in addition to the disease of obesity. My two best friends both have autoimmune diseases, and you can bet I've been talking to them about all of this. So this is no joke. This is no joke, right? So stress is a disease maker and a killer. So in relation to your weight loss and your weight maintenance and your overall health and prevention of other diseases, are you working to reduce stress? Do you need to learn better skills for reducing your stress? And maybe these skills include learning to set boundaries for yourself. Go back to prior episodes. We've got episodes on that. Dr. Mate, Dr. Northrup, all the people in these studies are speaking to the importance of self-care. We have done episodes on self-care and the ability to set boundaries when it comes to preventing or healing from disease. For God's sake, we've been talking about that for a while now in relation to the disease of obesity, right? So here's where we're headed. in the next week or two. Stress, as noted, is a response to perceived threat that affects every body's system. The impacts of stress can be felt across many parts of the body, but according to Dr. Mate, it primarily affects three systems: your hormones, think about how those affect your weight, your immune system, and your digestive systems. Fascinating. All that talk about gut health, right? So, although autoimmune diseases and obesity can be caused by lots of different factors, many people who have them, check this out, struggle with establishing boundaries. I have absolutely found that to be the case in working with the population of people who suffer from the disease of obesity. This means, and so many of you have said this, I constantly put other people's needs first. I take care of everybody else, but not myself. Sound like anybody you know? Dr. Mate says the stress of this emotional repression, I'm not taking care of myself. So many people are caretakers for aging parents, children, at the workplace, in the health professions. The stress of your emotional repression is mirrored in their immune systems, which fail to understand which cells to attack and which to leave alone. So, in other words, your body just knows it's stressed. It just knows it's stressed and it's got to do something with the overload of all of this cortisol. So, here are some things that you can do this week to reduce your stress, reduce the high levels of cortisol in your body, which will also help avoid emotional eating, which will also help you feel better physically, and maybe healing or preventing other diseases in your body. So, as I have long encouraged you to do, these doctors say quit talking negatively to yourself. Sound familiar? I don't know if there's any episode of Bariatric Aftercare where I talk about it's important to quit the stinking thinking. Stop with the stinking thinking. Start being kind, compassionate, supportive, and encouraging of yourself. Seriously, be nice to yourself. So that's the first thing I want you to do this week is when you catch yourself being unkind to yourself, stop. Say something compassionate. That's one task. The other is to start recognizing your anger for what it is. I'll do a whole podcast episode on anger, maybe after I'm finished with this business of cortisol and stress, the hormones. And then we'll talk about really healthy ways to work through anger and other repressed emotions. And we'll talk about where do these other repressed emotions come from. And don't think it doesn't pertain to you because it does. Because any kind of trauma or neglect or abuse we suffered as children until it's expressed is lurking in your body, doing some damage. I'm going to give you a story and I'll start with it next time. Remind me. Who's going to remind me? I'm going to remind me. It's about my lungs. And I have some issues going on in my lungs. And I had an emotional experience about a week ago. And I will tell you about that. Fascinating and so timely in relation to all of this. All right. So anger might be killing you and unexpressed emotions might be killing you. So let's not only work to prevent regain, but also cancers, autoimmune disorders, other disorders by getting to know ourselves. Pay attention to the tension in your body. What's it trying to tell me? How do you need to learn to grow? In what areas of your life do you need to learn to grow to reduce the stress and prevent these illnesses? I love it. Our bodies are giving us hints that something's not right, and then it's our responsibility to learn to do what we need to do. Maybe it's work through our issues, learn to love ourselves. We're going to prevent other diseases while we do it and avoid regaining weight at the same time. That was a lot. Encourage your friends, your family members to listen to this because it has to do with our stressed out society and how it's killing us and how we need to work to prevent the buildup of cortisol in our bodies and to express our emotions. Thank you for taking the time with me tonight. A little glitch in the internet, but I appreciate you. I appreciate that there are many other things that you could be doing. Take care of you. And remember, we are talking about your health, which is your responsibility this day and every day. I will see you next time, my friends. Bye bye.